It's time for our WrestleMania 40 predictions, going through the entire card for the weekend to give you our thoughts on who is going over in the show of shows. Let's start off with one of the newer matches that was added recently. We had the new SmackDown signing of Jade Cargill. She came out to SmackDown, she cut a promo, and we know now that she's going to be at WrestleMania. So we are going to be getting Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi going up against Damage Control 3-on-3. This match, we've had the story behind Naomi Bianca versus Damage Control for quite some time, specifically with Bianca, and I like that we've had that long-term story built in there. Jade debuting in the 6-woman tag, I think, is a great spot for her. I think that's a great opportunity to showcase her, highlight her, give her that giant WrestleMania entrance. Like, I thought her entrance, by the way, on SmackDown, the debut entrance of that, I thought that was killer. So I'm really happy to see that. I really am excited to see what they put out for her at WrestleMania in terms of the entrance and everything, and then really just showcasing and highlighting Jade in that match. And I do think, honestly, it's going to end up being Bianca, Naomi, and Jade Cargill going over, and you are going to get the three of them standing tall in the ring. They defeat Damage Control, and then you end up with Jade standing tall. And I think you want to be able to highlight her as a main eventer. What they do with Jade Cargill after WrestleMania, that is one of the more interesting pieces to me. What do you do with Jade? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Who's she going to feud with first? Does she keep doing a tag team thing? Maybe they would just redo a rematch at Backlash, something like that. But I think after WrestleMania, get Jade on TV weekly. If they're treating her like a giant star, then I don't necessarily see her wrestling every single week. But I think eventually you want to get to a point where she's feuding with Asuka, where she's feuding with Io, where she's feuding with Bianca and Naomi. Depends what they do, because right now she is a face, but they could easily switch Jade into a heel, and it'd be really cool, even a returning Charlotte Flair. And there may or may not be a draft, so I like to see what they do on that one. Next up, we're talking about Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, United States Championship triple threat match, ladies and gentlemen. This one, I am gonna say that Logan Paul is going to retain the United States Championship. Randy Orton is massive. Like, he's absolutely huge of a man. He should win the US title, but at the same time, I think Logan Paul as US champion kind of fits pretty good. And if he shows up a little bit more consistently, cuts more promos, gets into other programs, and maybe even if there's a draft after WrestleMania and he goes over to Raw, that could shake things up in terms of the roster. I don't think Kevin Owens or Randy Orton need the belt. I don't know what it really does if you make them champion, and also based on the card and kind of our predictions here, having a good balance of heels and faces going over the course of the two nights, I think you need to have some heels going over. My guess is that you're gonna get Logan Paul retaining by doing like the brass knuckles shot to Kevin Owens, and Logan Paul retains the title. I think you will end up seeing like an RKO, crazy RKO to Logan Paul, get the stunners, and that's kind of like what part of the story is going to be. And then you could roll this off after WrestleMania for Randy Orton, Kevin Owens to feud for a little bit. But I do think that you need Logan Paul. Logan Paul's doing okay as US champion. I don't mind it. Brother versus brother. Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. Now, if you watched my whole rankings of each of these feuds and how the builds have been, we did that on the channel the other day. Go check that one out, cheap plug. But I don't love how the Jimmy and Jey feud has been built for WrestleMania. I love the story of the bloodline. I love the story of Jimmy and Jey within the bloodline. But when the Royal Rumble happened, we didn't get this crazy intense kickoff of Jimmy and Jey finally going to collide at WrestleMania. We had Jimmy just run out on Raw and attack Jey, and it's on. It's great. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great match. But it didn't have the real intertwined build that I was hoping for to culminate with the two brothers fighting. They were tag team champions last year at WrestleMania, and they lost the tag belts. They're going in on this one-on-one at WrestleMania 40. I kind of feel like there needed to be a little bit more weight to this match to really kick it up, because they're playing with the bloodline, they're playing with Cody on Team Cody and the Avengers of Cody, and I feel like that's what they've been doing for the last few months, and it hasn't been this really engrossing feud where you feel like there's the weight of the bloodline and the history and all of this, just that they are having a match. So gonna enjoy it. Haven't loved the build from Rumble to now. In this thing though, I don't know 100%. As I'm sitting here, I'm like, on paper Jey Uso needs to win because he's main event Jey Uso. And I think Jey Uso needs wins, actual credible big wins, because he's been on Raw. He's super over. He's like top merch seller. He's doing wonderful. Jimmy is a very, very hilarious character in himself. Like, he's done tremendous work since he's just stayed on SmackDown and broke away from Jay. I really loved Jimmy's work, but I do think at WrestleMania, you're probably going to get Solo involved. What would be really cool during this match is you get Rikishi involved. If Rikishi could sit ringside and watch his boys battle it out, I don't know how this thing could end, but if you had Rikishi involved, I think you could end up having them shake hands and hug at the very end, where all three brothers, they all hug, and Dad's in the ring too, and they make amends, despite having to split off still, and Jimmy goes back to the bloodline, and Jay goes solo over on Raw. Though I will say that at the end of this, I think you do end up with Jay winning, but maybe there is going to be a moment at the end of this match where maybe Rikishi does come in the ring, if he's there, because I think it would be really cool. And you could have that opportunity to have them try to shake hands, try to make amends. Maybe Jimmy then just low blows Jay and turns on him still to set up longer matches, because I do think that there is a possibility you extend the brother blood feud for many, many shows, many pay-per-views, and even years, if they really want to do it, to then turn around at the end and become tag team again. But I think that you could do this at Backlash, Bash of Berlin. You could do this longer term, even to SummerSlam if they really want to play it. But give me Rikishi in the ring at the end and trying to bring the family back together. That'd be really cool. Jey Uso is my vote going over. Another one that's been a fun feud and a silly feud, LA Knight versus AJ Styles. This has been a silly feud in my eyes because the whole LA Knight going up to his house and all of that, honking the horn, getting thrown in the police car, I've loved it. I think it's hilarious. I love what they've done with this. AJ Styles is huge, like Randy Orton too. This has gotten a lot of good intensity. I thought the whole cop thing at the house was silly in terms of how it was produced and the whole thing, all of it coming together. But you know what? I'm getting AJ Styles and LA Knight in a one-on-one match at WrestleMania, and I'm excited for it. I do wish that this was going to be more of a no holds barred or Extreme Rules, since it is in Philly. Maybe they'll give it a stipulation before the match starts. That would be my only thing because of how they've built this. This is just about aggression, two guys that don't like each other. You had LA Knight show up at AJ's house. They've been brawling, so I'd like to see them get a little bit more extreme with this. Fly off and go through a table or do something. So with this match though, I think you gotta give it to LA Knight. I do. I mean, on one hand, you could give it to AJ Styles and then extend the feud for a couple of months, but honestly, LA Knight, for the year that he had with WWE, getting over as big as LA Knight has, and then having the match with Roman, mixing it up with the bloodline and going off and having like the fatal 4-way and then spiraling into this thing with AJ. LA Knight is still extremely over on TV, and I wish that he would get into more of a main event program. So I think though, to make the fans happy, he didn't win Money in the Bank and he didn't win the Undisputed Championship, obviously. I think you give him a WrestleMania win over AJ Styles. Doesn't really hurt AJ, and AJ can come back as this heel even with the OC and take down LA Knight after, and they could extend it if they want to. But I think you need to give fans that big moment where everybody's saying LA Knight, yeah, and I think LA Knight wins. Okay, the Tag Team Turmoil ladder match. Now, I love ladder matches at WrestleMania because it adds the spectacle. I miss having Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. It made it felt so much fun and huge and like a big WrestleMania match. Same with the TLC matches at WrestleMania. I miss having that. So I'm really glad that they are doing this. The big question mark is going to be, how is this going to turn out? Because I think it's going to be a little bit more complicated and fun than what it looks like on paper. So we've had all these qualifying matches, and the participants are the tag team champions Finn Balor, Damian Priest versus DIY versus The Miz and R-Truth versus The New Day versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller versus Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, all for the tag team championships, the undisputed, the red and the blues. I don't think Judgment Day holds on to these. They haven't felt like any urgency or thought of like they're gonna lose the belts in this ladder match. There's a lot that can happen here. Here's my prediction for this thing. I think they split the belts. I think this is their opportunity to split the belts, and if they don't, they just need to get new belts, like just undisputed belts. But I think this is their moment to split the titles and give you the world titles and the WWE tag titles on respective shows. I think it needs to happen because you're showing us with all these qualifying matches, there's a lot of tag teams in WWE on main roster. I think they need split titles. So how do you do it at WrestleMania? I think you get Awesome Truth winning one pair of the straps. They could win the Raw tag team titles. And the way you do this is you have R-Truth climb up on the ladder, maybe face to face with Damian Priest, and Priest goes down and R-Truth pulls one set of titles and he only pulls the Raw titles. And Truth jumps down and celebrates with The Miz that they won the match. Because that's very much R-Truth's thing. You've seen he came into a Royal Rumble one year with the ladder and they thought it was a ladder match and it's not. That plays into his character. So it would make sense for R-Truth's character to pull down only one set of titles and celebrate like they won the whole thing, but they didn't. And then after that, you basically get everyone in the match realizing there's still another set of belts up there and they're gonna go for it. So Truth and Miz still in the match, obviously, but then it breaks down and you can get them kind of thrown through tables, taken out, and then you're left with the rest of the teams. Then it's the shakeup and who could win the other set of tag team titles. And it's a flip of the coin if it's going to be the Raw or the SmackDown titles, because I do think that they should rebrand them after WrestleMania. If Truth and Miz win one set of titles, I think you could give it to Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. Kind of like a dark horse, because they're good as a team together. They're even branding more as a tag team together. Do I think like DIY should get it? Yeah, maybe, but I think they'd be better off chasing for the belts. Judgment Day, I think, is more interesting if they don't have the titles, because then they're starting to lose everything, and Damian Priest only has the Money in the Bank, which we can talk about in a little bit. Now, if they don't do it that way, if it's not going to be Waller and Theory, you could have Judgment Day retain one set of belts, but I don't think that's as interesting. I think the R-Truth aspect makes it fun, comedic, and crowd pops because they go, there's another set of belts. So R-Truth and The Miz win one pair of belts, Grayson Waller, Austin Theory win the other belts, and then they rebrand them. Hey, it's Matt from the future. So we have one other match we got to talk about because this was finally confirmed. It figured like it was going to happen, but we're talking about Street Profits, Bobby Lashley versus the Final Testament. For this, I've actually enjoyed how this has come together over the last couple of months since Final Testament really started to come together. It's taken a little bit of time to get this rolling. I'm a big fan of Karrion Kross. I like where he is going with all of this. I think bringing AOP in as kind of like the muscle and the henchman works really well. I want to see like the Street Profits actually get rebranded with Bobby Lashley. Make it a BFAB in there, like make it a real faction, give it a name and more of an identity. It's all very cool, it's fun, but I like how they set this up where they got taken out of the tag team tournament, and that is motivation to do this match on top of everything like Bobby and Karrion Kross. So this is a lot of fun. They did have the beatdown on SmackDown, Bobby Lashley getting taken out by Final Testament. I think it's going to be Street Profits and Bobby Lashley getting the win, but for what I want Karrion Kross to go over. I think Final Testament needs a win. Karrion Kross as a solo act in WWE, like main roster, he would have these matches or these series of matches or these feuds, but he would always lose. And so I don't want that. I don't want to see that. I think Final Testament needs a win. They need to go over. And you can have Bobby Lashley and Street Profits like climb from behind. They could win at the next PLE. But I think that you do need to give this, or you can have Bobby Lashley beat Kross in the future one-on-one match and do that. So for this, I'm going to say Final Testament is going to win at WrestleMania. The other match that was confirmed a little late is going to be the tag team match. So we have Santos Escobar and Dominic Mysterio going up against Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio. This is it's not that exciting to me. I thought Carlito would have been the other brother, but they put Dragon Lee as the new LWO member. I don't know why you wouldn't use Carlito. He's right there. He's over. He's very popular with the fans. They really like him. He's in the LWO already, but no. They go with the outsider. They bring in Dragon Lee to do this. This came together very last minute for the tag team match. Like almost an excuse to get Dom on the show, because he wasn't doing anything. Dom hasn't had feuds at all, like all year long. He's had matches. I don't really have anything, like any inkling of this whole thing. I kind of feel like the heels need to go over though. So I will say that Dom and Santos will win. Santos needs credible wins. If he gets this win over Rey and Dragon Lee, like he can pin Dominic or Santos can pin Dragon Lee, and he can afford the win and get the pinfall. And then that way you could set up a one-on-one match between Rey and Santos and extend Dom and Rey. Because what I think this can do is set up Rey versus Dom one more time and do it at WrestleMania 41. Maybe do the hair versus mask match at that point. And I also think after WrestleMania, Dom needs to go and do more things. He's with Judgment Day, that's fine, but he needs to get into feuds and do something that's gonna be bigger. Bringing him in with LWO and Legado, it's just kind of like, what? Like he's with Judgment Day, but now he's working with Legado. Okay, so yeah, I think the heels need to go over so that they have something to go off with. The Dragon Lee could easily win with Rey. I think it'll be a fun match. I just feel like it's very slapped together. So yeah, I'm gonna say heels win. And now back to your regularly scheduled program. Okay, Gunther versus Sami Zayn, the Intercontinental Championship. I wish Chad Gable was involved in this. I do, because I think Chad Gable's story had a little bit more interest for me watching this week over week, especially as the tension has grown with Sami Zayn. And they haven't done that. And now Chad is in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which we could talk about in a second. This one is interesting because Sami's had good promos, but Gunther is Gunther, and he's dominating with that Intercontinental Championship. And I don't know if you want to pull the trigger on Sami Zayn win the IC title. And if you do, to me, it's to get Gunther to go off and go fight for the world title. I don't know if it's time yet, because if you have another year of WrestleMania where Gunther is back-to-back, winning back-to-back WrestleManias, the Intercontinental Championship, retaining it. If Gunther wins and retains, I don't know who he's fighting. Does he then just get into another thing with Chad Gable and Sami Zayn and do a triple threat, Bash of Berlin, something like that? Like, what are they gonna do next with Gunther if he stays within the IC title? I think huge WrestleMania moment, I am gonna pick Sami Zayn to be the one to dethrone Gunther. I don't know if that's necessarily going to go down, but I am saying it because it's the big shocker, big WrestleMania moment. Sami won the main event, the tag team main event last year, WrestleMania. I think Sami needs to go on a singles run as the mid-card champion, maybe take it over to SmackDown in a draft, shake things up with the rosters. And I think more importantly though, Gunther drops that IC title to then move on to the World Heavyweight title or the Undisputed Championship if Cody wins. I'm looking at the landscape of that world title division, if it's going to be a healthy CM Punk by the summer, if it's going to be Drew McIntyre, who is a heel, if you got Seth Rollins still around, you need more heels. I think you need more bodies at the very top, and I think Gunther, you got to eventually pull the trigger and give him that world title. So unless you're going to give him a double title, I think you guys got to drop it. Big shocker WrestleMania would be Gunther dropping the Intercontinental Championship. So I'm going with Sami Zayn. I don't know if that'll happen. Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, Women's World Championship. This one seems very cut and dry to me because I haven't found, the build has been good, but I don't feel like Rhea's ever had a moment where I feel like she's gonna lose it. And Becky is almost at this point in her career where she's kind of above title. I don't need Becky Lynch to have the belt. I've seen Becky's run, and I've loved Becky Lynch's run when she's been on top. I think Becky is doing some of her best work. Her feud with Trish was amazing. Her feud with Tiffany Stratton NXT was fantastic, and that match was awesome. So I think Becky is in a better position to be away from the belt and building up other stars and getting into other more fun creative feuds. Rhea has had the giant, long, dominant one-year reign as champion. Her feuds, not really that great. Hasn't done too much in terms of feuds, long-term feuds, but it's been a year of establishing Rhea as top superstar. I think she needs to beat Becky Lynch to solidify herself as truly top female superstar. So I'm going with Rhea Ripley's going to retain the women's championship. She won it last year against Charlotte. She can knock off another horsewoman by beating Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. And then she's got two of them down, and she could probably go into Bayley maybe by SummerSlam or next year's WrestleMania and see what happens there. But I think you could get this over with. Becky loses, do some rematches if you want to, but you could roll in new talent, shake the roster up a little bit. Maybe it's a Jade Cargill that gets sent over in a draft, even though she just signed to SmackDown, or vice versa. Rhea gets drafted to SmackDown. There's a lot of things that could happen. Bianca could be another contender if they shake things up and go after Rhea Ripley. But I think Rhea needs new feuds, bigger feuds. that and getting beyond just Judgment Day. So I'm gonna say though, Rhea retains. I will insert here the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. It's announced for SmackDown before WrestleMania. And you can see on screen there's just a ton of contenders that are going to be in this thing. But the ones that are going to stand out to me that have a pretty good shot of winning, the contenders I think are going to be in your final few is going to be Andrade, Ricochet, Chad Gable, Shinsuke, and Bronson Reed. I think they're going to be kind of in the finals of this thing. And to me, it's either going to be Andrade or Chad Gable. Now, I do wish that they would do the Battle Royal where the person who won the Battle Royal would actually get like a title shot, even a mid-card title shot, something other than just having the stinking trophy to walk around with. I don't know if you give it to Chad Gable because I feel like it's just going further and further and further down. He didn't even make it on the WrestleMania card, not even in the tag team match for the ladder match with him and Otis. I don't think you give it to Chad Gable. Like, on one hand, totally deserving, probably would happen, kind of makes sense. But I feel like that is moving him so far away from the IC title, and if Sammy wins the IC title, like I said, you got Chad versus Sammy ready to go as they planted those seeds. And Chad can lean into maybe being a little more aggressive and a little bit more heelish because he's jealous and angry and sick of Sammy and that he won the belt that he should have won. So instead of Chad Gable, I'm going to say Andrade wins because Andrade just came back and he hasn't been in anything yet. And this is a good way to boost Andrade's profile back in WWE. Get a notch under his belt. Andrade's going to win. LD. Okay, then we have Io Sky versus Bayley for the WWE Women's Championship. I've really loved this whole feud and arc of Damage Control, the breakup, the turn, Bayley discovering they're talking behind her back. It's all been really good. Dakota Kai being with Bayley, but then turning on her as well. They have done this very, very well. It's been one of the more fun things to watch on SmackDown for me. I really like how they use Bayley's character. And I think Io's been interesting too because she's been hesitant in taking down Bayley. Like, she hasn't been able to pull the trigger, but the rest of Damage Control does the dirty work. This, I think, is going to end up being probably with Damage Control involved, trying to interfere. But I think before that match, you are going to end up with the 6-woman tag. And so you could have in the match Damage Control trying to get involved. And then comes down Naomi, Bianca, Jade to interfere and even the odds, get them backstage, and you end up with the one-on-one situation. Here, at the end of it all, I think Bayley wins. Make her the women's champion. I think she deserves it. She's been in WWE for so long. She has been women's champion, but something she needs to do is get that big win at WrestleMania. It'd be a huge moment, and especially also on the other side of things, you're gonna have Rhea potentially retain the title, so you gotta heel. Mommy's a tweener, but you're gonna have Rhea retain. You got a heel retaining that title. Give Bayley that women's title. Be that big champion. And you know what? Bayley winning the women's championship, I feel like opens the door to a lot of fresh matches and fresh feuds because she's going to be a face. She can still keep going and fighting Damage Control, but you could end up with Asuka or Kairi Sane. You could have jealousy stuff with Bianca, with Naomi. You could have Charlotte return and you could have Charlotte fight Bayley. You have Jade fight Bayley. I think there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with Bayley if she's the women's champion, and you got a lot of heels coming at her. Okay, then we're gonna talk about Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship, and you got CM Punk on commentary. This one, if you talked to me about 2 months ago, then maybe Punk was gonna be in the match. But if you talked to me when Punk was out of the match, it was gonna be Drew versus Seth, at first, I probably would have said, it's gonna be a little bit dull and boring, because I felt at the time, you've seen the match, and Drew would win. Drew's character work, what he has done in this entire stretch, before Punk returned, like leading up to all of that, Drew for several months has been reinventing his character, his persona, and in the last several weeks, I feel like he's really elevated it to a point where every week now, Drew is on TV and I am interested. Because especially this past Monday Night Raw, where it was Seth and Drew and Punk in the ring, that whole dynamic really worked for me, brother. And I love the fact that Drew is showing that he's obsessed with the title, but he's also obsessed with CM Punk, which is really interesting. And Drew's huge too, and he hasn't won the belt, and he's always felt like he's getting screwed over out of everything. This match is interesting for a lot of reasons. One, the variable of CM Punk. I wanted him to be special guest referee. I thought that would have been really cool. But if he is not, he's gonna get involved somehow. He's going to do something. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe he is just going to be calling the winner. But I do think that the winner will be Drew McIntyre. I think Seth is going to lose, and it's going to impact him for the rest of the weekend for WrestleMania. We've also seen Drew talking to Paul Heyman. I don't know if it's going to be a clean-cut win of 1-2-3, like a Claymore 1-2-3, and Drew wins the title. I think there's a very big possibility that the Bloodline gets involved in this match to help Drew win. Maybe that causes CM Punk to get out of his chair and take a steel chair and start attacking the Bloodline or fending them off to even things out. That also then creates some seeds and possibilities of future matches of CM Punk Bloodline if you ever want to do that. So you could get that element in there. So Punk is almost enforcer / commentator, but I do think the Bloodline has to play a role if you got Paul Heyman talking with Drew, doing whisper talk backstage. So I think that the Bloodline does interfere. But the big question mark, what about Damian Priest? Damian Priest hasn't been talked about for the Money in the Bank cash-in at all. And this is either because they don't have a plan and they're not going to pull the trigger on this, or it's just not playing into it at all. So it is a huge surprise. I could see it either way. I could see Seth beats Drew, but then immediately Damian Priest cashes in and wins, thus giving Drew way more anger and motivation to then fight Damian Priest, and off they go. Seth can get involved in that, rematches, all of that good stuff. I'd really like to see Drew just win the title, because Drew holding the World Heavyweight title and the way his character is right now, it would be really cool. And then you have a returning CM Punk at, let's say SummerSlam, if he can come back then. You've got built-in stories all in there, Seth and Drew and CM Punk. The question about the cash-in though, do you get Drew to win and then get Damian Priest to cash in on a Drew McIntyre? Or, and I just started thinking about this, what if Drew wins? What if CM Punk gets involved however he does, but ultimately it's Claymore 1-2-3 and Drew wins the belt? And then what if there is a cash-in? But what if the cash-in is done, Damian Priest cashes it in, and then the Bloodline gets involved? And what if the Bloodline gets involved when the cash-in happens, and it stops and ruins Damian Priest's cash-in? So he fails the cash-in attempt. Distraction by the Bloodline, a beatdown on Damian Priest by the Bloodline, by Jimmy and Solo, and they take him out, roll him in the ring, Claymore, and Drew retains. You've now built Drew up to be this mega monster dominant champion because he beat Seth and he defended against Damian Priest's cash-in, and he has an alliance with the Bloodline. Something like that would be really cool because it hurts Damian Priest, but they haven't done anything with this Money in the Bank. And I don't know if they're just got cold feet on it, but this would be a way to get out of it. Instead of doing what they did before, like last year, and you have Austin Theory cashing in on a mid-card title on a Raw, it doesn't make much sense. So I think that is a possibility, but regardless of the landscape and the shenanigans here, I'm going to say that you are going to get Drew McIntyre winning the world title. The next one of the biggest matches of the whole weekend. The main event of night one, the tag team match. The Rock, the final boss, and the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns going up against Cody Rhodes and Seth frickin' Rollins. I think that for the story to be exciting and interesting and have a lot of intrigue, I will say right now, I think The Rock and Roman win the tag team match. And I think that then makes it Bloodline rules going into night two, which makes it way more intriguing to know what The Rock will do, what the Bloodline will do, if it's no holds barred essentially. And will anybody come to Cody's aid? I hope Stone Cold Steve Austin. And there might be a mystery match, which I heard about as well. So we'll stay tuned to see if they do anything there. And there's probably other legends and people will show up too. Hulk Hogan's inevitable to show up, brother. Like it or not. The tag team match though, you've had The Rock beat down Cody, leaving him a bloody mess on Raw. It was awesome television. I think you need The Rock to dominate. He is considered the final boss now, in his eyes. And Roman Reigns really feels kind of secondary in all of this stuff. And I think The Rock gets the pin, maybe on Cody or on Seth. If he does it to Seth, I think that it helps protect Cody a little bit. So you could get The Rock pinning Seth Rollins. They win the tag match. They leave them a bloody mess to end night one of WrestleMania. And then that leaves the huge question marks going into night 2. And you have a beaten down Cody Rhodes having to defy the odds for night 2. So with night 1, I do think The Rock and Roman win, but The Rock needs to get the pin. The Rock needs to hit a rock bottom on Cody or Seth, because it's gonna help set up all the seeds being planted for WrestleMania 41, when it's probably going to be Rock versus Roman. So Rock can sit there and be like, I've beaten these guys down. I pinned Cody, or I pinned Seth. If he pins Cody in the tag match, he can say, I've pinned this guy. I won the tag match. You didn't. And that leads us to night 2's main event, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. And I think that this one will be bloodline rules. Anything and everything's gonna happen. I think you will get it'll be a big overbooked mess. And I think it is going to be built up like this big Avengers moment, this endgame moment, where you will have the bloodline involved, where you will have Cody's allies involved, canceling each other out. Maybe, like I predicted in other videos, maybe you get a John Cena and a Stone Cold to come in and help even the odds out a little bit just for fun. That is way too much chaos, but The Rock's gonna be there. And I think with The Rock being involved, it's not gonna be a clean finish. But at the end of the day, I think you will end up having Cody Rhodes win the Undisputed Championship. He will pin Roman Reigns 1, 2, 3 and defy the odds, and he'll hold up the belt. People will hold him up, and Cody will cheer. Everyone will cheer for Cody, and fireworks go off, and the big blue and red pyro goes off for Cody Rhodes. He walks out one way or another. He walks out of night 2 with that belt. But I think what is cool and interesting is what it will all do for Rock's story with Cody, maybe, and Roman Reigns after all of this. Presumably, The Rock and Roman disappear for a while. Cody would then head up SmackDown as the champion. Maybe there's a draft and there's a giant shuffle of a lot of people, including the belts. But there's a lot of moving pieces here, and I'm also looking at when they got that Netflix deal in 2025. And I feel like the TV direction is changing. The Rock's involvement has been huge. He is going to go off and film a bunch of movies and do all of that. But I think that the way the tag match will end and the Cody Roman match will end will really address, or hopefully plant a lot of seeds and give us some direction of what Rock's next move is going to be when it comes to him maybe going up in a match against Cody, because honestly, that's what I want to see. I really want to see Cody versus Rock one-on-one. Maybe they will do that at something like SummerSlam, or maybe they will go all the way to WrestleMania and they will just do Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania 41. But what do you think? What are your predictions for WrestleMania 40? Either way, enjoy wrestling, because it's a big wrestling week and weekend. I hope you guys love it. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, let me know your predictions below in the comments. Have a great day. See ya.